My name is Phyllis, and I'm 68 years old. For 40 years, my backyard was the heart of our family, the site of every birthday graduation, and especially our Sunday barbecues. I believed that tradition was a kind of love, something solid you could pass down. Until last Sunday, when my son Derek took that love, balled it up, and threw it on the ground right next to my perfectly seasoned ribeye. I did not say a word that afternoon. But by the next morning, I was on a plane, and the for sale sign was hammered into my front lawn. Before I share more of the story, I wonder about your own family anchors. Do you have a special place or a tradition that holds your story together? Let me know where you are watching from and what that place means to you in the comments below. If stories about quiet strength and new beginnings resonate with you, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to join me on this journey. The rhythm of my life in Westerville, Ohio, was as familiar and comforting as the worn spines of the library books I used to manage. My days began with the sunrise over my perennial garden, a kaleidoscope of cornflowers, black-eyed Susans, and the rose bushes Frank and I planted the year Derek turned 5. The house, a cozy split level with butter yellow siding, was not just a structure. It was a living scrapbook. Every scuff on the hardwood floor told a tale. Every stain on the kitchen counter held a memory of a spilled glass of juice or a cookie decorating frenzy. 3 years had passed since Frank left us, a quiet departure in his sleep that left a silence so profound I sometimes felt I was living inside a hell breath. But our house kept me company. I found solace in the routines he and I had built. Saturday mornings were for farmers' market, where I would carefully select the freshest corn, the plumpest tomatoes, and for our Sunday tradition, the finest ribeye steaks Mr. Henderson the butcher had on offer. That particular Saturday, the air was crisp with the promise of early fall. I felt a flutter of happy anticipation as I drove home, the groceries beside me. Derek and his family were coming the next day. It was our standing plan, a date I circled on my mental calendar with a kind of sacred hope. I believed these Sundays were the glue, the way I could keep my son, my daughter-in-law Amber, and my grandchildren Ethan and Chloe woven into the fabric of my life and I into theirs. Back in my sun-dappled kitchen, I began my preparations. I pulled Frank's big ceramic mixing bowl from the cupboard, the one with the tiny chip on the rim from when Derek as a toddler had tried to help me make pancakes. I assembled the ingredients for the barbecue sauce, his father's recipe passed down to him from my father-in-law. Brown sugar ketchup, a splash of apple cider vinegar, Worcestershire sauce, and the secret, a pinch of smoked paprika, and a whisper of strong black coffee. As I stirred, the tangy, sweet aroma filled the kitchen, a scent that was to me the very essence of family and belonging. The phone rang just as I was covering the bowl with plastic wrap. Derek's name flashed on the screen. "Hi, sweetheart." I answered, wiping my hands on my apron. "Hey, Mom, quick question." His voice was clipped, the background noise of an office or a car muffling his words. "You're not making those baked beans with the canned pork and molasses again, are you? Amber's doing this whole new keto-adjacent protocol. Carbs are a hard no." "Oh," I said, the smile fading from my voice. "I was just about to start them. I have a fresh green bean salad I could make instead." "Perfect. And listen, what kind of beer do you have? If it's just those mainstream lagers, don't worry about it. I'll pick up a 6-pack of this new local IPA. You wouldn't like it, it's too hoppy." "I have some of that nice ale you brought last time," I offered, feeling oddly defensive of my modest refrigerator. "Probably skunked by now. I'll handle it. We'll be there around 1. Gotta run, Mom. Big deal closing on Tuesday." The line went dead before I could ask about the children or tell him I had gotten the steaks he liked. I stood there for a moment, the receiver humming in my hand. "He's just busy," I told myself firmly. "He is a successful man with a lot of pressure. It is his way." I finished my preparations, the earlier joy now tinged with a faint anxiety. Later, as I seasoned the ribeyes with salt, pepper, and a little garlic powder, I looked up at the photo stuck to the fridge with a magnet from the Grand Canyon. It was Derek, at maybe 7 years old, his face smeared with my barbecue sauce, grinning from ear to ear as he stood next to his father at this very grill. The man on the phone sounded nothing like that joyful little boy. But he was still in there somewhere, I was sure of it. Tomorrow would be lovely. It had to be. The crunch of tires on my gravel driveway announced their arrival at exactly 12:55. I smoothed my best linen shirt, the cornflower blue one Frank always said, brought out my eyes and went to the door. Derek emerged from the driver's seat of a sleek silver SUV so large it seemed to dwarf my modest sedan. He was wearing designer sunglasses and a polo shirt with a tiny embroidered logo. Amber followed her blonde hair in a perfect ponytail, her athleisure wear looking more expensive than my Sunday best. Ethan unfolded himself from the back, his lanky frame swallowed by an oversized hoodie, white earbuds firmly planted in his ears. Chloe. My sweet Chloe scrambled out last, her eyes meeting mine for a fleeting second before she looked down at her phone. "Mom," Derek said, striding up and giving me a brief one-armed hug. He smelled of expensive cologne and coffee. "House looks the same." "Welcome, welcome," I said, trying to infuse warmth into the space between us. "Chloe, you've gotten so tall, Ethan, how's school?" Ethan grunted, not removing his earbuds. Chloe offered a shy, "Hi, Grandma." Amber air-kissed near my cheek. "Phyllis, my goodness, you're still keeping up with this whole yard. It must be a full-time job." She said it with a smile, but her eyes swept over the flower beds as if calculating the labor costs. "Oh, I enjoy it," I said, leading them inside. "It's good for me. Can I get anyone some iced tea, lemonade?" "We brought water," Amber said, holding up a case of designer water in sleek glass bottles. "Hydration is key," and Derek brought the beer. I watched as Derek placed the six-pack of craft beer bottles adorned with cryptic hipster labels prominently in the center of my kitchen table, nudging aside the pitcher of homemade lemonade I had made. The afternoon unfolded in a series of small paper-cut slides. I brought out a platter of cheese crackers and some grapes I had arranged carefully. "Grandma, does this have dairy?" Ethan asked, pointing at the cheese with a look of distaste. "Well, yes, honey, it's cheddar," I said. He rolled his eyes. "I'm plant-based now for the planet." Derek chuckled and clapped his son on the shoulder. "That's my boy. Mindful." Amber wandered into the living room. "You know, Phyllis, with the market the way it is, this house is sitting on a gold mine. This lot size, a developer would tear this down and put up two tall and skinnies in a heartbeat. You could make a killing." The words felt violent. Tear this down. My home, the place where I rocked Derek to sleep, where Frank and I danced in the living room to old Motown records. I simply said, "I'm not looking to make a killing, Amber. I'm looking to live." When it was time to grill, I carried the platter of steaks outside to the familiar brick patio. Frank had built the grill himself, a sturdy rust-spotted kettle that had seen decades of service. I loved the ritual of it, the smell of charcoal, the sizzle as meat met grate. But Derek was right behind me. "Here, let me take over, Mom. You always play it too safe. We want a good cha." He deftly took the long-handled tongs from my hand. I stood back feeling suddenly superfluous on my own patio. He lectured about grill temperatures and the Maillard reaction as if he were conducting a seminar. I nodded silently, my role reduced to that of an audience. The only flicker of warmth came from Chloe. As I was carrying out a heavy bowl of the green bean salad, she appeared quietly at my side. "I can take that, Grandma." Her fingers brushed mine as she took the bowl. She didn't smile, but the gesture was there, a tiny glowing ember in the growing chill. We all gathered around the old picnic table, its wood worn smooth by years of family meals. I had set it with my checked tablecloth and the stoneware plates that were chipped but familiar. Derek held court, talking loudly about a luxury golf community deal he was brokering. Amber nodded along, interjecting with comments about square footage and amenity packages. Ethan scrolled on his phone. Chloe picked at her salad. My moment of pride came when I brought out the steaks. They were beautiful, I have to say. A perfect cross-hatch of grill marks the center, a juicy tender pink. I had saved the largest, most marbled ribeye for myself, a small reward for a week of loneliness and a day of effort. I set the platter down with a soft clatter. "Here we are," I said, my voice cheerful. "Dig in." Derek paused his monologue and leaned over, inspecting the meat. He picked up the steak knife and poked the center of my ribeye. "Mom," he said, his voice dripping with a kind of theatrical disappointment. "This is medium." I specifically said, "Amber only eats medium rare. This is practically well done for her." My heart sank. I I must have misheard. "I'm sorry, Amber." "Here, take mine. It's the most—" But it was too late. In one fluid, contemptuous motion, Derek used his fork to spear my beautiful steak and flip it off the platter. It sailed through the air in a slow, horrifying arc and landed with a soft, definitive thud on the flagstone patio, a little puff of dust rising around it. He didn't even look at it. He looked at Amber and smirked. "Guess it's dog food now, babe. Sorry." The world narrowed to that point on the ground. The rich brown steak against the grey stone. A piece of my care, my hope, my labor lying in the dirt. The table was utterly silent for 3 heartbeats. Then Ethan snorted a suppressed laugh. Amber gave a delicate, dismissive shrug. Chloe's eyes were wide, glued to me, her face pale. A hot wave of humiliation so intense it felt like a fever washed over me. It was followed immediately by a cold so deep it froze the tears before they could form. I looked at my son's face, expecting to see a flicker of regret, a joke gone wrong. There was nothing, just mild irritation at the inconvenience. Without a word, I moved. I walked to where the steak lay, knelt down my knees, protesting with a pop, and carefully gathered it onto a napkin. I stood up, walked past my silent family into the kitchen, and deposited it in the trash bin. The action felt ceremonial, like burying something. I turned back to the screen door. My voice, when it came, was not my own. It was flat, calm, and distant. "I think I'm feeling a bit tired. Please enjoy the rest of your lunch. There's peach cobbler for dessert in the fridge." I did not wait for a response. I walked through the quiet house, up the stairs to my bedroom, and closed the door. I did not cry. I sat on the edge of the bed Frank and I had shared, and I listened to the muffled sounds of conversation and laughter starting up again outside. The sound of my family continuing their meal perfectly fine without me. I waited until I heard their car leave. No one came to check on me. The goodbye was a shouted, "Thanks, Mom," from Derek, and a vague wave from the others from the driveway. I stood at my bedroom window, watching the SUV disappear down the tree-lined street. The house felt cavernous and hollow. I descended the stairs. The backyard was a battlefield of empty plates, crumpled napkins, and greasy platters. The grill was still faintly smoking. I rolled up my sleeves and began the work of cleaning. The warm, soapy water did nothing to thaw the cold knot that had settled in my chest. As I scrubbed the greasy grill grate, the reality of the afternoon finally broke through the numbness. He did that to me, my son. The baby I fed, nursed through fevers, cheered for at baseball games, helped with homework, loved with a ferocity that defied description. He saw my offering my love made tangible in that meal, and he treated it with literal dirt. And no one, not his wife, not my grandchildren, had said a word in my defense. I was not a person to them. I was a function, a provider of Sunday lunch, a keeper of a house that was an asset to be discussed, a relic of an older, irrelevant world. The anger came then not as a fire, but as a sharp, clear ice pick. It was piercing and clarifying. I dried my hands and picked up the phone. I dialed the number I knew by heart. Eleanor answered on the second ring. "Phyllis, everything all right, honey? How was the barbecue?" At the sound of my oldest friend's voice, the dam broke. I tried to speak, but all that came out were ragged, tearing sobs. I cried for the steak, for the silence, for the little boy in the photo, for Frank, who was not here to stand beside me. I cried until I was empty. Eleanor listened. She did not offer platitudes. She did not say, "He didn't mean it." When my weeping subsided into hiccups, She spoke, her voice a low, steady anchor, from her home in Sarasota. "Phyllis," she said, "listen to me. That house is wood and drywall and memories. Your heart is your home, and your heart does not deserve to be treated like a doormat. Not by anyone, not even by your own child." Her words landed not as a comfort but as a command, a truth I had been too afraid, too loyal to acknowledge. When we hung up, it was dark outside. I did not turn on the lights. I sat at the kitchen table in the chair Frank always used, and I stared into the darkness. The phrase "enough is enough" did not come to mind. Something quieter did. "I am done." A strange, purposeful energy began to hum in my veins. I went to the small desk in the corner of the living room, booted up my ancient desktop computer. Its glow was the only light in the room. I typed "Best Real Estate Agents, Westerville, Ohio" into the search bar. I clicked on links, read reviews. I chose one, a woman named Lisa with a kind smile in her photo, and reviews praising her compassion. Next, I looked at my bank statements on the screen. My teacher's pension, Frank's life insurance, my modest social security. The numbers were not grand, but they were mine. They were freedom. Then, on a whim, I searched for apartments in Sarasota, Florida, near Eleanor. I saw a picture of a small, sunny one-bedroom with a lanai overlooking a pond. It had no yard to maintain, no history, no ghosts. It looked like peace. I printed the listing. I wrote Lisa the agent's number on a notepad. As the first hint of dawn tinged the sky pink, I went to my closet and pulled out my largest suitcase. I did not pack it. I simply set it on the bed, an intention made solid. The following morning, I acted with a clarity that felt foreign and exhilarating. At 8 o'clock sharp, I called Lisa the realtor. "Lisa, this is Phyllis Henderson. I need to sell my house as quickly as possible. Can you come over this afternoon?" To her credit, she heard the steel in my voice and simply said, "I'll be there at 2. Next, I called Hank, my neighbor from 3 doors down, a retired carpenter with gentle eyes and a perpetually grass-stained baseball cap. "Hank, it's Phyllis. I need a favor. That's a bit of an odd one. I'm moving. Suddenly. Could you help me box up some of the heavier things in my house today? I can pay you for your time." There was a long pause. "Moving, Phyllis? Is everything okay? Did something happen with Derek?" "Everything is clarifying itself, Hank. I just need to move some boxes. Are you free?" He arrived within the hour, no more questions asked. Together, we began packing my books, my good china Frank's toolbox. We worked in a companionable silence, the sound of packing tape screeching through the quiet house. That was when my phone rang. Derek's name flashed. I answered, my voice steady. "Hello, Derek." "Mom, hey. Just checking to see if there was any of that cobbler left. Amber's got a craving." "There is no cobbler left," I said. "And I need to speak with you. I'm selling the house. I have a realtor coming this afternoon. I'm moving to Florida to be near Eleanor." The silence on the other end was profound. Then came the explosion. "You're—" "What, Mom? Have you lost your mind? You can't just sell the house. What are you talking about? Is this about the stupid steak? You're throwing a 40-year tantrum over a piece of meat." I let him rant. I held the phone slightly away from my ear. Hank paused, a stack of books in his hands, and gave me a slow, approving nod. When Derek ran out of breath, I spoke. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the static of his anger. "This is not about the steak, Derek. This is about 40 years of love being treated like a renewable resource you can tap without gratitude. This is about being made to feel invisible and insignificant in my own home. I have made my decision. I do not need your permission. I'm informing you. You are being irrational. Where will you go? What will you do? You're too old to just pick up and move. I am 68, not infirm. I have a plan. I have resources. And I no longer have the desire to host people who do not see me." His tone shifted from anger to a wheedling, condescending panic. "Mom, come on, we're family. You're overreacting. Think of the kids. Think of their inheritance." "I am thinking of myself, Derek." I said the words, feeling revolutionary. "For the first time in a very long time, I am thinking of myself. Goodbye." I ended the call. My hand was trembling, but my spirit felt like forged iron. The rest of the day was a whirlwind. Lisa came was wonderfully pragmatic and listed the house at a fair price. I called a charity to come take almost all the furniture. I would not bring this heavy past with me. I packed only the essentials: photo albums, Frank's favorite books, my mother's silver, my own clothes and linens. It was shockingly little. On the kitchen table, I left a final note for Derek. I included the recipe for Frank's barbecue sauce, written in my careful cursive on an index card. Below it, I wrote, "A tradition only has meaning when it's fed with respect. I wish you happiness in building your own. Love, Mom." It was not an apology. It was a passing of the torch and a closing of a door. The Florida sun was a different animal than the Ohio gentle. It was bold, generous, and relentless. My new apartment was exactly as pictured: small, clean, and filled with light. My lanai looked out over a small, placid retention pond, where egrets sometimes stood like sentinels. There was no garden to tend. There was only the view and the quiet. Eleanor helped me settle in. We went to thrift stores and found a cheerful, comfortable sofa and a small dining table. It felt like play, like building a fort, not anchoring alive. And then the phone began to ring. First, it was Derek again, rage having curdled into threats. "You have no right to sell what is partly my inheritance. I'll contest this," I replied calmly. "Derek, you have not contributed a single dollar to the mortgage, taxes, or upkeep of that house since you left for college. It is my separate property. Your name is not on the deed. Please speak to a lawyer if you wish, but you will not win." The bluster faded, replaced by a sputtering confusion. Then came Amber. Her call was all chilly pragmatism. "Phyllis, we're just concerned about the financial ramifications. A quick sale never gets top dollar, and the market in Florida is so volatile. This is very impulsive." "It is my impulse to manage," I said, "and my volatility to risk. Thank you for your concern." I did not wait for her reply. The calls came daily, sometimes multiple times a day. There were variations on a theme: guilt, anger, feigned worry, financial anxiety. I stopped answering most of them, but I did not block the number. I let the phone ring, a reminder of the life I was leaving behind, growing fainter with each peal. Then one evening, a different number appeared. A Sarasota area code, but not Eleanor's. "Grandma?" It was Chloe's voice, small and thick with tears. "Chloe, honey, what's wrong?" "I miss you," she wept. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't say anything. I wanted to. I was scared." Oh, that sweet, guilty voice. It unlocked a chamber of my heart I had sealed shut. "Chloe, listen to me. You have nothing to be sorry for. You are a child. The adults in that backyard failed you too. They failed to show you how to treat people with kindness. Dad is... He's really mad, but he's also sad, I think. He doesn't know what to do." "That is not your job to fix, sweetheart," I said, my voice firm with a love I realized could exist from a distance. "Your job is to be 13, to study, to have friends, to be kind. You can call me anytime. I love you no matter what." That conversation was a balm. It proved that not all the seeds I had planted had fallen on barren ground. The first nights in the new apartment were the hardest. The silence was not the familiar memory-filled silence of Ohio. It was empty, a blank page. I would wake up at 3 in the morning, disoriented, heart pounding, wondering what I had done. Had I been selfish? Had I cut off my nose to spite my face? The ghost of my old life, the one defined by duty and sacrifice, whispered these doubts in the dark. But slowly, with Eleanor's patient companionship, a new rhythm began. I did not rush it. I allowed myself to grieve. I cried for the loss of the dream of a close-knit family, of being the beloved matriarch. I let that dream have a proper funeral. Then I began to build. I visited the local library, a beautiful modern building with soaring windows. On a whim, I asked about volunteer opportunities. They welcomed me with open arms. 2 afternoons a week, I read stories to a group of preschoolers in the children's section. Their sticky hands and unabashed wonder were a medicine I did not know I needed. I was not Derek's mom or Frank's widow to them. I was the story lady. I bought a simple sketch pad and a set of colored pencils. On my lanai in the mornings, I would attempt to draw the shapes of the palm fronds against the sky, the elegant curve of an egret's neck. They were terrible drawings, but the act of looking truly seeing was everything. I learned to say no, without apology. When a well-meaning new acquaintance invited me to a loud, crowded event, I smiled and said, "Thank you, but that's not for me." The sky did not fall. The house in Ohio sold within a month. Lisa called me with the news. The buyers were a young couple expecting their first child. They loved the garden, she said. They talked about putting a swing set under the old maple tree. When I heard that, a final knot of sorrow loosened in my chest. The house would have laughter again. It would have love, just not mine. And that was okay. The calls from Derek dwindled, then stopped. The last one was not angry. It was just a flat, "The closing paperwork is done." I replied, "I hope you and your family are well." And that was that. I sit here now on my lanai, as the Florida sun begins its spectacular evening descent, painting the sky in shades of mango and lavender. A cup of peppermint tea is warm in my hands. My phone is silent on the table beside me. The lesson I learned is not about winning or getting even. It is about sovereignty. Being a mother does not mean you cease to be a person. You're allowed to occupy space. You're allowed to expect kindness. You're allowed to walk away from anyone who makes you feel small, even if you gave them life. Love does not have to be a cage. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and in the long run for them is to demonstrate your own worth by refusing to accept less. I thought a home was in the walls that held your history. I was wrong. A home is in the peace you feel when you cross the threshold of your own soul. And I, Phyllis, at 68 years old, have finally come home. If you have ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your own peace, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Sharing our stories reminds us we are not alone. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like. It lets me know what matters to you. Subscribe for more journeys of quiet courage and new beginnings. And if you know someone who might need to hear this today, please share it with them. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to build a home within yourself, wherever you are.